This episode is proudly supported by Powerhouse Parramatta.
Powerhouse Parramatta will open in 2025. The new museum will be the largest in New South Wales and is determined to offer the very best in hospitality. Perhaps your business can be part of defining a food and beverage offering which is expected to cater to 2 million visitors a year. This incredible opportunity for operators includes retail food and beverage, in-house residential catering, events and other hospitality ventures, encapsulating the diversity of cuisines and cultures that make Western Sydney so exciting. Interested to learn more? Powerhouse invites food and beverage operators to a briefing on Tuesday, 8th of August. For more information and to register for this exclusive briefing, go to powerhouse.com.au.
Oh, look, I love the cows. Don't get me started on cows. Cows are just incredible creatures, and it's such a pleasure and an honour really to work with them.
This is The Producers. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Most Wagyu are finished on grain, but deep in the southern forests of Western Australia, Judith Bennett and her husband Richard are raising Wagyu on a rotational grazing system. Grass pastures are paired with their own meadow hay to give their cows a happy, healthy life completely raised on grass, and it delivers a truly unique eating experience.
Where we're farming is in the southern forests of Western Australia, in the southernmost corner, I guess. And our farm in particular is literally tucked in the middle of a karri forest. In fact, I often joke to people that we live in the middle of nowhere. But yeah, you know, as far as nowhere places go, it's a pretty nice place to live, I must admit. Down here we have very high rainfall and we have beautiful loam clay soils, obviously having been originally a forest, the land we are on in particular. And it's definitely a great place for raising cattle and growing grass. In fact, we have a large number of cattle growers in our region, as well as many other food producers. And the southern forests of Western Australia are pretty much known as the food bowl of Western Australia, so it's becoming a very popular holiday destination, for agritourism, that sort of thing.
Judith and Richard threw in their jobs and adopted the farm life, with the goal of producing the best beef possible.
Yeah, well, like I said originally, Richard actually is one of 9 children, and I can see why they had 9 children because it's a lot of work. We're very blessed actually. We've had a lot of woofers over the years come and help us on the farm, and I love that because they bring the world to us as well, and we get to share our message of the importance of, natural farming and that sort of thing. But, Richard, he wanted to become a full-time farmer because, like a lot of beef farmers in our region, it's hard to be a full-time beef farmer. So he actually has his own mobile agricultural repair business. He's a mechanic. And in fact, so am I. Over the years, I ended up doing my trade as well to support him with that. So we're quite resourceful people, but he wanted to be a full-time farmer. It's his passion, his love. So, I just spent many a night thinking, how can we get that to happen for him? And so initially that's when I thought, okay, what's the best meat in the world? What's the best beef? And of course discovered Wagyu. And having eaten Wagyu, I could see why. So that's when we sort of started that journey quite a few years ago, investing in Wagyu with embryos, which is a very expensive process for small farmers, but that's what we did, and we've been slowly trying to breed our own little herd, which is where we're at now. And and then we moved across to regenerative when things got sort of tough. We had a period where the agricultural repair business went quiet actually because of different farming things that were happening in the region, I guess. And through that, Richard decided to work on the mines for a couple of years. And that meant flying in, flying out, and me becoming a full-time farmer, which was, quite daunting. And I'm a person, like I said, I came from the corporate world, so it was quite different. I mean, I did have, some family farmers sort of out in the wheat belt growing up, so I'd sort of seen a little bit of farming, and I liked the farming life, and I certainly love where we live, but just having that responsibility was quite scary for me. So I do what I do, and that's do my homework. So, so those lonely nights when the children were in bed, and I would research, farming and different practices. And I'd always had a passion for everything natural anyway. It was the way I was raised, and I'd already, done permaculture design courses and a few biodynamic workshops just for fun in Perth because I was interested in it. I'm a lover of learning. And, so this was something that really resonated with me when I learnt about regenerative farming. So the key was, though, if I could get Richard on board, because, like I said, he's a traditional man who's always done what they've always done. So I figured the best way was to bombard him with YouTube videos, on the flight home and all that sort of thing. And so then one day Richard was like, wow, this is what we have to do. And having said that, we had already been doing a lot of natural things anyway, because, we were trying to grow our own vegetables just for ourselves. We, processed our own meat for ourselves. And, Richard was, he's a healthy kind of guy too that loves all that sort of thing. So we'd already been using granular fertiliser with microbes coated on it. We used very minimal pesticides. So it wasn't that hard a transition really. But it was, the biggest challenge was that rotation of the cattle, which is key to regenerative farming, is because that's so important, and it's the logistics of that. I think that's the thing that's probably scares traditional farmers most is, it's a big change, because it's easy just to throw a mob of cattle into a big paddock and leave them there for a week until they've eaten all the grass down. But we now know that that's not the best way to farm for the land or the cattle. So there is that big change. But, so it was through, Richard's love of wanting to be a full-time farmer that we created Belvedere Valley. And Belvedere actually came about because there was a sign, Belvedere, on our farm gate, and I think it must have been the previous owners. I mean, we live in a region that's about to, a small town that's about to have their 100th anniversary next year. So it's not an old region, but and so this was probably one of the, not the first, but fairly early on farms that were, but I believe Richard's parents cleared a lot of the land, which would have been a mighty job, given we have tall carry trees. So his parents are just absolute inspirations to us. They're still going, 88 and 95. So, they definitely show us that, cooking your own food especially, and if you can grow it as well. They still grow their own veggies in their little backyard. So it was that Belvedere on the gate that we kind of came up with it. But Belvedere Farm is actually, there's one over Eastern States, and so we couldn't register that business name. So we kind of got the kids together and had a little brainstorming session to come up with it, and our son suggested Belvedere Valley because he was like, Mum, we look at the back of the farm, we look down and there's that valley, and it's absolutely beautiful. We can, in the mornings you see the mist rolling over it, so that's kind of why we went with that,
Belvedere have two breeds on the farm, Angus and Red Wagyu, with the aim to be full-blood Wagyu soon.
So the breed we have, we've decided to focus on these days is Wagyu. We have Red Wagyu bulls and cows, and we also have Angus as well. So we have two types of cattle, in that we are calling them Wagyu 50 and Wagyu 100. So our Wagyu 50 we're crossing our Angus cows with our Wagyu bulls, and then we have our full bloods, which are our Wagyu 100s. And that's ultimately where we're leading to, is we'd like to be fully Wagyu full bloods 100s. We have just had our on-farm facility approved by our shire, and in the next few weeks we will be processing our first full blood and our first Wagyu 50. Well, we've actually had a number of Wagyu 50 already, but this will be the first time we have a Wagyu 100. So, it'll be interesting to see the difference there. But we're very happy with our Wagyu 50 that we have at the moment. We're getting pretty good marbling scores in that.
Life on the farm for the cattle is pretty good in the southern forest.
Yeah, look, I think that's something that we're very passionate about is how we care for our cattle. One thing that is that we rotate our cows every day. It's, first job up in the morning is moving the cows, and that gives us an opportunity to see them, see how well they are, how happy they are, and also how the land is going as well, which is a very important part of that regenerative farming, is making sure we're leaving enough behind. And so they're rotated every day. And also part of having lifetime on pasture Wagyu is that they are kept on farm for 3 years. That's part of how we have to... because it's the only way we can get the natural marbling on grass. And that's probably why we're one of the very few people doing this as our major beef product, really. There's a few people in Western Australia that, say they do the Wagyu, and most of that's like grass-fed. Most of it would be a first crossed. But it's not something that you see consistently on grass because it is difficult to do. You've got to keep them so much longer. So, and of course, keeping an animal for 3 years, there's also risks of them getting sick or getting snake bite, or so there is a high risk for us doing this. But it's just, I sort of looked at what's the ultimate animal I would want to have and eat myself, and I love it. I think it's, personally, I'm not a marbling score of 9 kind of Wagyu person. That's not to my taste. Some people love that. So for me, even with our Wagyu 50s that we've got already, the tenderness, the marbling, and you get that beefy flavour from the grass-fed, it's just such an amazing combination. I love it. And my guests have really loved it as well. So, I feel like we're on a winner. And look, it's not easy, and I think that's something that people have to understand. There's going to be a price tag on that, and that's just the way it is. If you want, animals that have cared for in such a way where there's no chemicals, no pesticides. We only use all natural inputs, and a lot of them we make on farm ourselves as well. Richard makes his own fish emulsion, he makes his own compost teas, and we're continually learning too about what else we can do. So we're really trying to keep it this little tiny spot in the middle of the forest that's protected, and the animals are protected. And that's something that we're really passionate about and learning, and hopefully others will appreciate that and reap the benefits as well in beautiful meat. It's like us, I suppose. We are what we eat, and it's the same with animals. And this is we were originally traditional farmers. Richard followed in his father, how he farmed, and through the processes we've moved over to regenerative. And again, it's that learning curve, and it's something that every farm is different. The soils are different, the locations are different, the rainfall's different, and there's a lot of variables, and that's something we're still working on. But it's important to get, the variety in the grasses is good for the soil, also the animals, to make sure they're getting everything they need. Like most regenerative farmers, we're doing lots of trials and experimenting to see what works. We have lowlands in the summer. That's where the valley comes from, I guess. And down there we will, irrigate grass there we have spring-fed dams, so we irrigate that to bring some more higher protein grasses in for the cattle, to keep that up. But it's I think the importance is that they have plenty of grass and they're relaxed. I think is a really important part of that process as well. And it's time, patience, and just monitoring them, watching them. And I mean, Richard is such a visual person too. So he's the man on the ground really I'm a city girl originally, so it's been a big learning curve for me, but Richard's born and raised here, and that's what I said to him when we moved to regenerative. I said, you're the one that's going to make this successful because you know every bit of this land, you've been farming it your whole life. And his passion for it is what keeps me going too, really.
Working on the farm and producing the best quality Wagyu is one thing, but Judith is building a brand that chefs can trust too.
Well, we actually haven't started selling our branded beef yet since we've moved over to the Wagyu. We used to sell to Woolworths when we just had Angus beef, or first, Angus cross beef, the traditional way. And that was another reason why we wanted to start branding our own beef, to try and get a little bit of that back in our pocket. And so it was last year I did a program with Farmers to Founders, which is a great organisation that helps support farmers who want to value add their product. That was, a definite shout out to them. They do a great job, and we definitely learned a lot about, setting up your own branded beef business. And I don't think we'd be as far today if it wasn't for their support, which is great. And George Gekas for Battalier. He was just an amazing mentor for us as well, that really got the firecracker up Richard, so to speak, and get things going. So we're at the stage now, like I said, we've just had our on-farm facility registered with the Shire. They're super happy with what we've done, and I think this is where Richard's mechanical expertise has come in. He's great at problem solving, super creative and very meticulous. And, our local health manager was blown away at, the detail he's put into it and the professionalism for a small on-farm facility. So we're super excited to, get the first lot of animals into the cool room very soon. So, keep your eye on our social media. You're going to see some stuff coming up soon. Oh, look, it's been amazing. It's been a huge roller coaster, huge learning curve for me. But, like Richard, I'm very passionate about the environment and caring for the world we live in. And I just feel like I finally found, I think, my purpose, something that I can do to give back to the world, and teach my kids. It's not just about us. It's about everyone, and to find a product that's, healthy and good for us as well, but amazing in taste. And I loved city life when I was living there. I wouldn't change that, but there's nothing like the country life. As long as you're prepared for hard work, because it is that too. I don't want to glorify it too much for people, because it's like the old thing. Everyone goes, oh, thank God it's Friday. Well, oh no, I'm a farmer.
The versatility and bold flavour of grass-fed Wagyu means you can get the best out of just about every cut.
Oh, the best eating experience. I don't know. I love food, so in general, so it's really hard. But just a funny story with it though. I remember, when our kids were young, they're not so keen on a big piece of steak or something like that. Although Richard would love to have that every night. But so often when Richard would process just for ourselves, I would say to him with things like oyster blade steak, I would say, just mince it all up. The kids love tacos, all that kind of thing. But anyway, with our Wagyu, Richard said, oh, look at the oyster blade. And I'm like, oh my God, look at that marbling. It's amazing. And because I'm actually starting to learn about the beef cuts now, you know. I mean, in the city, I tended to just eat. I wasn't keen on beef actually when I was in the city, to be honest. It was more chicken and fish, and maybe when I went out, I'd buy like a small fillet steak or something because maybe it's because I wasn't very good at cooking it. I don't know. But when I first came down south and I first tasted even just the grass-fed beef in our region is pretty damn nice, I've got to say. I know I love ours, but I've got to admit everyone else's just grass-fed beef in general is just an incredible taste. And I think that's what I'd been eating grain-fed for so long. I didn't know what grass-fed tasted like, so I was amazed how much more flavour it had, to be honest. So with ours, with the oyster blade, with our Wagyu, it's obviously being the 3-year-old animal is quite a bit bigger. So with the oyster blade, I just cut the sinew out the middle, and then you've actually got 2 quite long, big pieces of steak. And I just thinly sliced that and just seared it in the pan and threw it in a stir fry. And, oh, my God, I think that is my most favourite cut of meat right now. I mean, it's interesting. I've noticed now it's because it's chuck. Oh, no, sorry. The other one I do is chuck, and they call it a Denver steak. That, you know, and that is another incredibly marbled. Ours is amazingly marbled. And, so I'm still learning. There's so much to learn about meat and the different cuts you can do. It's, I'm really excited and I'm really excited for the chefs to get hold of it, to see what they can do with it. Because I have a few chefs already that have actually contacted us that are really keen to get their hands on it. And these are chefs that actually have, you know, quite large restaurants, and they understand that we only have very limited supply, but they still want it. You know, they want to be able to do, you know, I guess like a special event, you know, introducing the product and the farmer. And so, I'm really excited to where we can go with that and get it out there.
The future is looking bright for Belvedere Valley with a unique and limited Wagyu product.
We're probably only going to have about 24 animals a year. And of course, and then we're going to have, this is the one that so many of them want to get onto, is our vintage. This seems to be a really big thing in Europe, is vintage meat, and we have vintage Wagyu as well. So I think there's going to be a fight on for those. So you've got to, you know, we've got people that we've spoken to about it, and they're like, I want to be on the list, you know, so put me on the list. So even like suppliers of different things we need, you know, vacuum sealing, you know, people are like, oh my God, my wife used to have a Japanese restaurant in Germany, you know, we would love some of your meat. Can you put us on the list? You know, like, so it's it's going to be interesting to see where we go, but we're definitely looking first up at restaurants that have that same passion for the environment and animal welfare, and that have customers that really appreciate the effort that goes into producing those animals. So, exciting times ahead, I think.
Although Judith loves the farm life, she has come to realise how incredible cows are.
Oh, look, I love the cows. Don't get me started on cows. Cows are just incredible creatures, and it's such a pleasure and honour really to work with them. And they are just like people. They have personalities, you know. And it's interesting. I'll tell you a little story which is going to make my eldest daughter totally cringe, because she hates it when I say this. She thinks it's quite derogatory to women, but I don't think it is. But it's like, I always joke and say that, you know, Richard's cows always come first, you know, and they do for me too, really. But I say I want to get myself a little pair of gold earrings with like a cattle tag and with a number 1 on it, just to remind my husband that I'm his number 1 cow. But you know what? Cows have always had this term like, oh, you're a cow, like it's a bad thing. But you know what? Cows are amazing. You know, they are strong, they are protective, they are super resourceful. You know, they're incredible creatures. So I'm quite happy to be named, titled a cow, as long as I'm the number one. But, the cows are great. Like we had a funny situation. Richard recorded one morning. He was out moving the cows and he sent it to me, and we'd had the bulls out with the girls. So that's a pretty exciting time for them. And he was trying to move them he sort of just dropped the electric fence, the gateway, to move them into the next pasture. And the bull wouldn't let them in. He was literally standing there and kept guarding them, like, no, these are my girls. They can't come in. So he was worried he was going to lose them, So, yeah, and it's just great. And I love it when the calves have just had their evening drink. They all seem to go to mum's at the same time and they just run around crazy afterwards with all these yippee beans and they mimic the bulls, They'll headbutt each other and it's just amazing. I just love watching them. I could do it all day, but that won't get the work done.
Judith and Richard are the epitome of small-scale farming concerned with the environment, delivering the best life for the animals and a product that is truly special. This is The Producers, a Deep in the Weeds production. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we share the stories of producers, farmers, makers and growers, the true lifeblood of the food industry. Follow us on Instagram at Producers Podcast or email us at producerspodcast@deepintheweeds.com.au.